Welcome to the Data Dealer. I'm SuzuEXP on both Octgn and BoardGameGeek, so if you have any complaints, you know where to find me. And this series is looking at data from 40,000 plus Android Netrunner games played on Octgn. These were made available for analysis by Divided by Zero, who also created the Octgn plugin allowing these games to be played in the first place. So I'd really like to thank him at this point. And what we're looking at here is whether a particular identity likes a fast game or a slow game, and whether they get it. And on the x-axis you can see whether they prefer a fast game, which is on the left hand side, or a slow game, which is on the right hand side. And the green one is neutral, where the game duration does not have any effect on the success of a particular identity. And on the y-axis simply the average duration in turns of a game involving a particular identity. So it's pretty much the whether they get it part of the equation. And there are only the 7 core identities in this graphic right now, because we're looking at the first week that the Octgn plugin was available. And what we see is that Wayland is far to the left, so likes fast games, likes games not to last long, and everybody else likes the games to be a bit longer, and these over here like the games to be really long, and that's NBN, GAPE, and HB. NBN, these days known for Fast Advance, really the furthest out on the right in the beginning, and everybody else plays about the same average game length, and it's sort of interesting. And GAPE, as a fast runner generally, is the runner that likes to stick around for the longest time at this point. And one of the reasons might be that GAPE in core, in faction, has a couple of ways to prevent tags, and thus the dreaded posted bounty scorched earth combo, which Wayland likes, and which makes everybody else look somewhat bad. And interestingly, Kate, as a runner with a strong end game, still prefers games to be shorter. But all of that is about to change, because even in the first week we see a lot of movement. And at the end of this week we can see that things have spread out. Now game length is the longest for Wayland even if it's just by a tiny amount, and GAPE really likes fast games now, which makes a lot of sense. Noise is smack in the middle. HB, Turtles, Kate, runs big rig, builds up, wants a long game, and NBN is moving towards the center a bit. So all of this makes sense, and the first week might have been testing the waters somewhat. And we see what happens next. At this point we can say, whoa, Wayland has started to like longer games, and the reason for that is that it's moving away from Scorched Earth and towards the big bad server. Um, we can see that NBN has really long games, and that Gabe is starting to become the short distance runner, really. Really pushing it in the early game, and really, if they can't win at a certain point, they're going to be helpless in the end game. So game duration makes a lot of difference, and these games, they last longer than the games of Noise, of Jinteki, and of Wayland. So Gabe not in a great position here, and as time goes on, we can see that Gabe is getting an end game, and Wayland is moving back to tech and back. That's what I would say happens here, and all the runners are at the same spot at this point. NBN really in it for the long haul, turtling even more than HB, and Wayland scorch earthing. And Wayland is really zigzagging in these early weeks, and now moving back to big server, and now moving towards scorched earth. And look, NBN is following suit. Tech and back NBN also becoming an option, but no moving back again. And Gabe also is moving around here constantly. Kate and Noise, apart from slight movement early on, haven't moved around a lot. The same goes for Jinteki. Personal evolution. It's always in the same region. It always likes slightly slower game, slightly longer, slightly shorter games, because it likes to flatline the runner with a surprise snare, maybe even has a scorched earth, but never to the extremes that Wayland goes. And that's changing now. As I say this, Jinteki is really liking short flatline games, and everybody is pretty much stuck at the center. Very little difference to the win ratio depending on how long the game lasts. HB really stuck with turtling at this point, really wants to drag the game out. Jinteki really wants to flatline fast. And we're moving on, and we can see there's Wayland moving back to the point where it really would like games to last long, but not getting it, playing short games still. And general movement, and Kate is moving around a bit, but it's always sticking close to the center. Noise is hardly moving at all, and Wayland is continuing its back and forth motion between scorched earth and building a big server. And Jinteki is now taking off to really being the flatline faction, and back to not really. And we see these motions back and forward with a lot of these identities, and Gabe is moving towards really being an early aggressor, and back to compromising to have a bit of an end game. And we can see Wayland and NBN to a lesser degree switching between building up servers to score, and running an aggressive tech and back. And oh, the first data pack. What lies ahead came out at this point, and with it two new identities, and we see that both of them play quite substantially longer games than the core identities at this point. And that's not that great for Wizard, who at this point has the edge in games that don't last that long. But it's great for Has Bioroid, Stronger Together, which is castling even more than the core Has Bioroid already does. And as this goes on, Wizard is moving into the into liking longer games, and it becomes even more extreme for Stronger Together. And here we see Gabe really trying to hit early, and that's getting more extreme. At this point, the extremes between the identities are pretty much the greatest they are throughout the entire development of the game. It's rarely happening, and Wizard is moving straight back in the other direction from being one of the identities that likes long drawn-out games to being an early aggressor. And this happens in such a short time frame. And now look at what is happening. A lot of action here. Wizard is moving back to the long games. Stronger Together starts liking the games not quite as long, but getting longer games. And Gabe is moving towards a bit more of an end game, but getting enormously long plays. And we can see Stronger Together moving towards the center, and Gabe also returns to somewhere where it makes a lot more sense, and everything is kind of clustered now. And we can see that just as things settle down, trace amount hit. And with trace amount, we get the new Jinteki, replicating perfection, having slightly longer games than average, but not as long as Stronger Together, and really liking longer games more than the core identity. The core identity wants to flatline. The replicating perfection doesn't necessarily. They want to play a shell game and score eventually, and setting that up takes time. So they are a bit slower and getting even more so. And Stronger Together is moving back out here, while Wayland is moving towards Scorched Earth once more. And we can see this kind of movement with Gabe seesawing back and forth, and Jinteki now the most flatline oriented corp, and Wizard really is moving back and forth a lot, depending on whether they really want to draw games out or end them quickly. And Wizard hasn't really found a place to sit comfortably, and that's something that is expressed, I think, through this motion. And you'll notice I rarely talk about Kate, I rarely talk about noise, and that's because there's very little to talk about. They're sitting here. NBN is moving slightly back and forth, but really is still trying to draw things out. And Has Bayreuth is still castling, and we'll, we will see this change uh, soon. But right now, Stronger Together is moving towards the really strong castle, really moving to the right. And there's Chaos Theory, and Chaos Theory starts out liking slightly shorter games than average, really where noise is, and everything seems to move towards longer games. Wizard, uh, Replicating Perfection, Wayland, Stronger Together, and at this point, Chaos Theory likes longer games than Kate, and that's a bit of a surprise because Chaos Theory is thought of as somewhat faster, but it's still a big rig deck, so um, that's somewhat interesting. And Stronger Together has longer games, but doesn't like them as much as before. That's how that move can be summed up. And we can see a bit of motion here and over there. Stronger Together always, when the games get longer, they don't stay as good as they used to be at playing long games. And now we can see them really liking shorter games, and the core has Bayreuth also moving there, and NBN moving there, and um, everything is everything seems to be moving to the left, and that's because Fast Advance really starts becoming popular at this point. And it's all very clustered. Everybody slightly above average games in terms of speed. Everybody wants them slightly longer than average. That I just need one more turn, and a bit below the radar. The second Wayland identity just hit, which means a study in static has been released. So we're close to the finishing line here. And it's really at the center. It's really pretty much at the center. It's about average duration. It gets about average duration at once. And let's see how that changes over time. We can see Stronger Together making another move towards castling really bad. Possibly that's Oversight AI and Janice. I'm not quite sure what it is. As everybody else is trying to fast advance. They're now really trying to get long games, and they're really doing well at long games, but they're not getting any. The games are shorter on average than everybody else's. And we can see that Chaos Theory and Kate keep circling each other, and at this point even Noise is trying to have long games compared to a lot of the others. And suddenly Stronger Together is going for fast advance. Everybody is trying to fast advance, and of course not everybody can play faster games than average. That's simply not possible. So there has to be somebody moving out to the right, and that's that's Wizard. Wizard is moving out to the right, and now he's moving back, and HB is castling again. And you see that Stronger Together is gone, and that's because in the final week, and this is the final week of our analysis, nobody played Stronger Together, and a lot of the time, a lot of the time, everything has been clustered pretty much in the middle with a few notable big movements. And what has happened in the past week is that everything has moved apart. We're now in a situation where we have 4 identities that want to have fast games, and that's Wayland because we build it. Interesting because you'd associate scorched earth strategies with the original Wayland a bit more, and you think commercialization, advancing ice. No, they really like to have fast games, and they're not getting them either. Um, Wizard likes fast games and isn't getting them. Um, Gabe still likes fast games, and so does Jinteki. And everybody else is apparently moving away from fast advance and from running aggressively, um, from flatlining in the case of Wayland Core and Jinteki replicating perfection. So I think we're at an interesting point here, but maybe that will stop looking interesting when there's more data. So I'm going to give you the whole thing in real time, not really real time, in 40 frames per week, um, but playing rather constantly. Look at Noise not doing much of anything. Look at Kate not doing much of anything. Look at NBN not really doing a lot. Um, Quite a few identities that have found up. Look at what Wizard does and what Gabe does here, and look at the constant motion of Stronger Together. There are some factions that simply haven't really found their playstyle yet, and the result is that they are moving through this diagram, and in one case even vanishing. Whoops, gone. Okay, thank you for watching, and see you next time.